Good Friday morning. I'd like to read to you from the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. It says, there's a right time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. A time for birth and a time for death, a time for planting and a time for uprooting what was planted, a time for killing and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for crying and a time for laughing, a time for grieving and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering them, a time for hugging and a time to refrain from hugging, a time for searching and a time for giving up, a time for keeping things and a time for throwing them away, a time for tearing apart and a time for repairing, a time for being silent and a time for speaking up, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for waging war, and a time for making peace. What do you do? I mean, think about this now. What do you do when you come across two verses in the Bible or two statements in the Bible that appear to be contradictory? They appear to contradict each other. You want the right answer? You believe them both. Now, I know somebody says, well, what do you mean you believe them both? Absolutely. You believe them both because the truth is life is composed of opposites and everything is appropriate in the right time, in the right season. I mean, this is the third principle. I've been the last couple of days of devotions talking about principles about relaxing and flowing with God's timing. And this is the third one. We need to remember and not forget and not get frustrated and confused because life is composed of opposites. I mean, those 8 verses I just read are a list of opposites. But God said they are all appropriate in the right season. You see, what we see as a contradiction is often a paradox. I mean, a paradox is when there are two seemingly opposite ideas, but they're both able to be proven true. And let's be honest. The crisis we're facing, the pandemic we're dealing with, is in many ways the worst thing that has ever happened that many of us have ever gone through in our lives. And yet it also at the same time is very well the best thing in a lot of areas. My son said to me the other day, Dad, as bad as this is, do you know how good this has been for my boys and mine? How good it's been for our family? I mean, I had a lady call me several weeks back and she said, Pastor, can you help me read my Bible? I've decided I better get into my Bible. I better do it. I talked to another lady in the church and she was talking about her family and they're one of the finest families I know. And very quiet, very about themselves as far as staying to themselves. Very concerned about others, helping people. But she said to me, she said, you know, we have spent more time together as a family and we're having devotions together because all the kids are home. We're having devotions together now and the kids are asking questions and we're reading and studying the Bible. You see, it's a difficult time, but yet it's a wonderful time. It's one of the worst things that's ever happened, and yet it's one of the best things that has ever happened to us. You see, sometimes life is a paradox, and we need to relax. You see, God has everything under control. He's got the whole world in his hands, and we may not understand, and we may be frustrated, and it may even create some challenges for us. But my friend, if you truly believe there's a sovereign God who is omnipotent and omniscient, then my friend, you just got to relax because God knows where we are and he's got the whole thing under control. God bless you. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you'll tune in with us at 9:45 on Sunday morning, YouTube and Facebook. You'll get to hear our praise team, and we'll have a great time as we look together at the Word of God. God bless you.